Louisiana healthcare has been caught up in a crossfire between national politics and bad policy decisions that threaten to undermine the health security of even those of us with health insurance. We're being dragged into a crisis by a governor who can't stop playing politics and by legislators who don't have the courage or the sense to stand up to him. This crisis has the power to disrupt access to healthcare services in every part of our state, but it poses a particularly lethal threat in central Louisiana because of the way the politics and the policy choices are unfolding here. In the next hour, we'll look at how the policy decisions made by Governor Bobby Jindal have set Louisiana on a path to a healthcare meltdown. The crisis is more advanced in central Louisiana because the governor appears committed to eliminating the only charity hospital in the region. This crisis is man-made. It draws its force from a series of politically motivated policy decisions made by Governor Jindal and legislators, fueled by ideology and the governor's national political ambitions. Central Louisiana is more at risk because the governor and the legislature have made this region's core healthcare institution, the Huey P. Hospital, a political football with no regard to the people dependent on the services delivered through Huey P. and the hundreds of healthcare workers who deliver them. The roots of this crisis can be traced directly back to two events in the summer of 2012. On June 28, 2012, when the Supreme Court of the United States upheld the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act, it said states had the option of participating in the Medicaid expansion part of the law. Governor Jindal immediately announced that he would not allow Louisiana to participate in Medicaid expansion. That politically motivated refusal to allow the state to take part in Medicaid expansion is the primary act that set in motion the crisis that's coming. Days later, despite pleas from Senator Mary Landrieu for Governor Jindal to call on his former colleagues in the House Republican leadership, congressional negotiators included a provision in the federal transportation bill that required Louisiana to repay the federal government more than $500 million in Medicaid overpayments that had been given to the state. Governor Jindal refused to intervene, knowing full well that the Medicaid clawback provision, coming as it did just days into the state's new fiscal year, would wreak havoc in the state's Medicaid program. Senator David Vitter, Louisiana's only member of the conference committee that shaped the final version of the bill, also refused to lift a finger or stop or even delay the clawback provision. The Supreme Court of the United States ruling upholding the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act and the inclusion of the Medicaid clawback provision in the federal transportation bill a few days later produced the forces that Governor Jindal has shaped into the crisis that now threatens the health care security of every Louisiana citizen. Despite the fact that he had long been critical of the charity hospital system, Governor Jindal has maintained that privatization of the hospitals was forced on him by the Medicaid clawback included by Congress in the 2012 transportation bill. But others, with knowledge of the situation, tell a different story. One of those is State Representative Robert Johnson of Marksville. In a recent meeting in Pineville on the healthcare crisis convened by Pineville Concerned Citizens, Representative Johnson said that Jindal line item vetoed a Department of Health and Hospital budget item in the 2012 regular session that could have averted the crisis.
We got an $800 million cut from the federal government, is what Governor Jindal is claiming. And that's why we're in this emergency situation doing what we're doing. But it's not exactly true. DHH came forth with an amendment, not last session, but the session before last, that would have allowed the charity hospital systems to take the money that they generate, their self-generating revenues, and call those state dollars. If we call those state dollars, we're able to draw down more federal Medicaid dollars, which would have filled in that hole for the $800 million we were going to lose. And we would not be in this situation. So when Governor Jindal says Congress and the President have started this problem, he's wrong. He line itemed that portion of the budget and created this emergency situation that he's blaming on Congress. So he created this, and I feel he did it by design, to be able to privatize these charity hospital systems.
Dr. Fred Cerise was the Secretary of the Department of Health and Hospitals under Governor Kathleen Blanco, then ran the LSU hospital system for 5 years until he was fired by Governor Jindal's hand-picked LSU Board of Supervisors in August of 2012. In this interview recorded in Baton Rouge last January, Dr. Cerise explained that the governor made a deliberate choice to concentrate the 2012 Medicaid cuts on the LSU hospitals.
The assumption was the state didn't have anywhere to go except the LSU hospital system. The truth of the matter is the LSU hospital system makes up about 12 to 13% of the overall Medicaid program and got about 67% of the impact of those FMAP changes. And so changes to the LSU system were not the only places to go to deal with that change in the federal matching rate. It clearly is a policy decision of the administration. There certainly are other options than to put the entire or the lion's share of that impact on the LSU hospital system. What you're seeing is a policy decision by the administration.
Dr. Cerise sees a clear connection with the governor's decision to use the Medicaid clawback to justify privatizing the LSU hospitals, and a part of his decision to refuse to allow the state to participate in Medicaid expansion. According to Dr. Cerise, Medicaid expansion offered the LSU hospitals a path toward sustainability.
Clearly a path to sustainability. From the delivery system perspective, we have the kind of system that you see others moving towards, trying to create scale so you can support things like big IT projects. So we felt we were on the right track there, and in fact ahead of the game there. On the financial side, we have a large percentage of the business that's paid for through the disproportionate share program, and about half of the patients in the system are uninsured patients. And what you would be doing with the Medicaid expansion is you would be moving probably 2/3 of those people from the uninsured category to the Medicaid category. The disproportionate share program is almost 40%. The state match for the Medicaid program for the expansion population, where you'd be moving the uninsured, would be 0 for the first 3 years, and over the next 3 years it tapers off to 10% state match, 90% federal. So you're moving from a uninsured DISH funded program where the state's putting up 40% to a Medicaid program where at its peak the state's going to be putting up 10%. And in that Medicaid program, Medicaid pays for physicians. The DISH program does not pay for physician services. So from the school's perspective, the physicians are providing that care. Now you have a funding source for those physicians as well. And so we had intended to have a very aggressive strategy to enroll people, to shift them from that uninsured category to the Medicaid category. It would be better for the state, better for LSU, and clearly would provide a funding source to sustain that operation.
Governor Jindal's rush to privatize the hospitals, then, is viewed as a rush to dismantle the system before those Medicaid dollars could save them. In rejecting Medicaid expansion, though, Governor Jindal has done more than just cut off LSU hospitals from the path to sustainability. He's also put many community hospitals in financial jeopardy while undermining the very privatization deals for the LSU hospitals that his administration has rushed to complete. Steve Spars is an analyst for the Louisiana Budget Project. At a regional forum on Louisiana healthcare held in Monroe in June, Spars explained that the financial jeopardy into which Jindal has placed a broad swath of Louisiana hospitals by refusing Medicaid expansion.
Those millions of dollars we spend on uninsured care, that burden is going to be shifted more and more to the state, because the federal money for uninsured care that we've been using, that money's slated to go down as part of the Affordable Care Act. If we did Medicaid expansion, the new federal money would offset those cuts, but you see without it, we're actually losing federal money instead of, at a time when we should be gaining more federal money to help our hospitals. These cuts are pretty modest in the first year, but by the end of the decade, we're looking at a 50% cut to the pool of money that pays for care for the uninsured. That's going to put a lot of hospitals on the financial brink, could even cause them to close, and ultimately that's going to hurt all patients, uninsured and insured, when our healthcare providers are hit with that huge financial hit. The charity hospital partnerships are especially vulnerable to the state not doing Medicaid expansion. We've tried to crunch the numbers on this, and I don't see how the partnership deals are sustainable in the long run without the new Medicaid expansion revenue. And so that's going to put a lot of stress on those hospitals and going to either require the state to put in more state money to keep them afloat or a reduction in services that is going to hurt patients again. Putting the charity hospital partnerships in peril, I think also could really risk the quality of our medical education, and that's something that the state certainly can't afford in the long run. We know that 70% of the people that study medicine here will stay in practice here, and if folks are worried that the hospital is going to be closing their doors, they're not going to want to study medicine here. And that's going to, again, hurt everybody, not just the uninsured, but the insured, because we're going to have fewer doctors, if folks are worried that, the programs might not get the funding they need.
So across the state, Governor Jindal's political decision to refuse to participate in Medicaid expansion places Louisiana hospitals in a financial jeopardy because the Affordable Care Act changes the way the federal government supports health care in the states. Currently, the federal government helps to pay the cost for the care to the uninsured through uncompensated care dollars. Through the Affordable Care Act, the number of people without health insurance will be reduced, either through the subsidies to help people buy health insurance through the exchanges or through expanded eligibility for Medicaid. Because Louisiana is a low-wage, high-poverty state, Medicaid expansion would be the path through which the bulk of those who currently don't have health insurance would get coverage. In March, the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals estimated that as many as 577,000 of the state's working-age adults who don't have health insurance could get coverage through Medicaid expansion. By refusing to participate in Medicaid expansion, Governor Jindal has decided to deny 500,000 or so Louisiana citizens access to regular health care. And that will force some Louisiana community hospitals out of business. Why? Because Louisiana, unlike the rest of the country, will still have a large number of people without health insurance, but the hospitals will still be legally obligated to provide care for them. The difference would be there will be less federal help available to help pay for that care. In March, Moody's Investor Service said it would consider downgrading the credit ratings of hospitals in states that have decided to refuse to participate in Medicaid expansion. Refusing Medicaid expansion could well be a death warrant for some Louisiana hospitals. Here's how this nightmarish scenario could play out in central Louisiana.
We're going to see if we continue on this path. I don't care how much insurance you have. I don't care if you have private insurance. I don't care if you have Medicare. I don't care if you have Medicaid. We're going to see a cascading series of failures in hospitals in Louisiana because at the national level, the money for uncompensated care and upper payment limits is going to go away. Why? Because in the rest of the country, the number of people without insurance is going to decline because they're going to get coverage either through the health insurance exchange or through Medicaid expansion. That's not going to happen here, but the money is going to go away. In Region 6, we have Riverland Medical Center in Faraday. Almost $700,000 of money, of uncompensated care money they got last year. What are they going to do? Bunkie General Hospital, $275,000. Hartner Medical Center in Olla, $400,000. Avaros Community Hospital in Marksville, $233,000. Wynn Parish Medical Center, $807,000. Rapides General only got $122,000. Huey P. Long got $15 million in uncompensated care money in the most recent year. These are dollars that are going to go away. Those community hospitals in particular, they operate on very narrow margins. They're hanging on by their fingernails to begin with. If this money goes away, they're going under. And when those hospitals close in Olla and Faraday and Bunkie and Winfield, where are those people going to go for care? Their need for care is not going to go away. They're going to have to go somewhere for care. Where are they going to go? Well, they'll come to Alexander. It's closer than Shreveport. How are the hospitals here going to care for those people when they can't handle the caseloads they have right now?
According to the most current estimates, there were just under 50,000 residents in DHH Region 6 who earn 138% of the poverty level or less. If Governor Jindal changed his stance against Medicaid expansion, many of these folks would gain access to health care coverage through that segment of the Affordable Care Act. Steve Spars of the Louisiana Budget Project has done the analysis of who these people are and discussed those findings in Monroe in June.
1 in 4 adults in our state are insured, even though most of them are working, including in jobs, construction, retail, and the tourism industry. These are folks that get to go to work every day, most of them parents with a kid or two, but their job either doesn't offer insurance, or if it does, it's simply too expensive for them to afford. After they pay rent and buy groceries and everything like that. When people who are uninsured gain Medicaid, they're more likely to be able to see a doctor, more likely to be able to take prescription drugs that can be important for managing chronic illnesses. Fewer cases of depression, fewer missed days of work, and most importantly, I think, reduced mortality. States that voluntarily expanded Medicaid over the last 20 years saw their death rates go down. So again, literally life and death policies we're talking about.
Governor Jindal was not always opposed to providing health care coverage for Louisiana's low-income families. In late 2008, during the final days of the Bush-Cheney administration, Jindal and his then DHH Secretary Alan Levine sought a Medicaid waiver that would have produced something very similar to Medicaid expansion and the health insurance exchange. They called it LA Health First. In Pineville on June 18th, former DHH Secretary David Hood, who worked as Jindal's Undersecretary of DHH in the first 2 years of Mike Foster's tenure, read remarks attributed to Jindal in a press statement released by the governor's office when the waiver request was filed.
And I want to read you some comments from one of my fellow former secretaries, and listen carefully here. Quote, "We know the statistics, but behind these statistics there are real people. Louisiana is last in healthcare outcomes. We have far too many people with no health insurance at all, and this system will not improve on its own. We have to take action to improve our healthcare system, provide more access to health insurance for our people, and have a more transparent system where our system's performance can be accountable. As we continue to work with our federal partners and legislators and healthcare advocates here, we remain fully committed to communicating to our federal partners why making the investment in expanded insurance in our state is such a compelling cause. We are continuing our dialogue with the hope that the federal government will look past bureaucratic hurdles and see that very real objectives for improving our health care are in reach. We are ready and willing to agree to a solution that invests healthcare dollars into our system so more people can have access not just to insurance, but access that results in better proven health outcomes." End of quotes. Let's have a round of applause for that. That's exactly how I feel. I mean, these comments show that the person behind these comments is somebody who cares. All right. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, by the way, this ex-DHH secretary is Bobby Jindal.
Still, other Republican governors, from Florida's Rick Scott to Ohio's John Kasich and Arizona's Jan Brewer, have decided that the federal government's offer to pay 100% of the first 3 years of Medicaid expansion's cost is too good a deal for their states to pass on. Governor Jindal apparently can't get past the politics of the issue to acknowledge that the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land and would be a huge benefit to the people of his state and to his state budget. Instead, his stubborn refusal to set aside partisan politics now threatens to wreck health care for every Louisiana citizen. Since the Medicaid expansion money won't move him, and the morality of leaving hundreds of thousands of his state's citizens without access to health care coverage does not make him pause, and the prospects of his privatization of the state's public hospital system failing without those Medicaid expansion dollars, the only plausible explanation is that Governor Jindal must believe that holding out on Medicaid expansion gains him some political advantage. If that's the case, the advantage will not be found in Louisiana. While the full implications of Governor Jindal's refusal to participate in Medicaid expansion are off at some point in the future, his dismantling of the charity hospital system, which has been operated by LSU, is happening right before our eyes and is wildly unpopular. Using the federal Medicaid clawback as the excuse, Jindal directed LSU officials from the start of the process to take steps to keep Louisiana legislators out of the process. Dr. Fred Cerise recalls the directives he and his staff received from the administration after the decision had been made to arbitrarily concentrate the cuts necessitated by the clawbacks on the LSU hospitals.
We were looking at how to deal with these cuts. The instructions that we had received from the administration and I had received from my board through the administration was to make the maximum amount of cuts that we could do that did not close an emergency room, did not close a hospital, and went up to 34.5% under the 35% threshold. Any one of those three things would require legislative authority. And so these were administrative decisions. It's interesting that the decisions were made within a couple of months of the legislative session in which the legislature funded the LSU hospital system. They were concerned about the prior year cuts that LSU had to take in the middle of the year, and sought input from LSU on what we would need to not have to have further reductions. And the legislature paid attention to that, and so crafted a budget that would not result in further reductions to services within the LSU system. And within a couple of months, these administrative actions were taken. So I know there was an attempt by the legislature to call itself into session to deal with this, but the fact of the matter is the reductions that have been proposed are designed to stay under that threshold requiring legislative authority.
Maybe because of who the facility is named after, but Bobby Jindal has worked throughout his tenure as governor to close Huey P. Long Hospital in Pineville. 2007, the last year of Kathleen Blanco's term as governor, was a year of hope and optimism for supporters of the hospital. Senator Joe McPherson succeeded in winning passage of SB 179, which transferred control of the hospital to the LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport. The law also put in place some protections for the facility and its services. Topping this all off was Governor Blanco's decision to include funding for a new Huey P. Long Hospital in the post-Katrina Ike package to replace 3 LSU hospitals: Earl K. Long Regional Medical Center in Baton Rouge and the Reverend Avery Alexander Memorial Hospital in New Orleans were the other 2. Clara Scott, a nurse who retired after 33 years at Huey P. Long, recalled the excitement, enthusiasm, and activity the news generated among the staff by the prospect of a new hospital.
I was part of at the time when money was provided to build a new hospital. All of the head nurses sat down, we worked out what our units would look like. Our beds, our furniture, everything that we needed to fully run a unit. We picked out everything that we needed, and the ambulatory surgery unit was going to be one of those things that was really right up to par with a lot of the facilities of our private hospital. And the entire hospital, as a matter of fact, was going to be that way. But for some reason or another, we had got all excited because we were going to get a new hospital. And I think that even though we were giving the best possible health care as we could, a lot of times when you put people in a new surrounding and in a new facility, it kind of lifts your spirit. It really does. It makes you feel, really, really great. And the people that are coming in, it makes them feel good to know that they were coming to a place to where it was comparable to people that were in the private sector. And it gave people who worked there the feeling, great, we'll be able to deliver excellent health care in an environment that was comparable to as if you were in the private sector. So therefore, spirits were really high. Later on, powers that be decided, for some reason, it just fell by the wayside. However, it did not stop the patients from coming, and it did not stop the excellent care that was given to those patients who chose to come to Huey P. Long.
Jindal has found closing Huey P. Long a much tougher proposition because it plays such a critical role in healthcare delivery and training in central Louisiana. Chris Roy Sr. is an attorney in Alexandria. He talks about the importance of Huey P. Long Hospital to the people of central Louisiana.
I've known it since I was a kid. I'm 77. If you're from Marksville, you know, in the Voiles Parish, you know that probably half the people would not be there if it hadn't been for Huey P. Long Hospital's progress over 70 years. Another thing is people don't realize that Rapides Parish is, I think, the second largest parish in the state in size. It only got about 152 or 154,000 people, but it's such a big parish that it borders 8 other parishes in central Louisiana. Avoyelles has 40,000, Evangeline has about 35,000, Allen Parish about 30,000. So what you've got is a nucleus of a society here that depends primarily on Huey P. Long Hospital, that is the poor. They can't afford these other hospitals and stuff.
In 2011, after he'd killed funding for a new hospital, Jindal announced plans to relocate the hospital to England Air Park. Terry Brown is an independent state representative from Colfax. He talked about his frustration from trying to get reliable information out of the governor's office on the status of talks involving the privatization of Huey P. Long.
To tell you what's going on in this state would be a travesty because no one knows. We met with Governor Jindal yesterday, Representative Dixon and I did, at the Votech School, and he said that estimates of moving time to England Authority would be as much as 18 months. Is that correct? Didn't we hear that with President Dixon? And I was in a meeting in the Senate. Senator Gallo, Senator Long, and myself met with Christy Nichols, the Governor's Chief of Staff, with John Grafton of the England Authority, and both administrators of Rapides General and Cabrini Hospital, as well as the mayor of Pineville and Alexandria and other elected officials in central Louisiana, police juries, all these other folks. And while the meeting was going on, Ms. Nichols came in, and John Grafton, as you all know, who is an extremely intelligent man, has run the England Authority since its inception, said, well, look, we've had a press conference saying what all we're going to do, and that we're definitely moving up there. Can anyone give me the figure that we're going to offer us to rehab that hospital out there? And Ms. Nichols never looked up. She said $14 million. And he said, well, my bottom line is $22 million. So I don't know that an agreement's been reached. I have no idea if one has been reached, and I don't know if Representative Johnson and Representative Dixon do, because I was in that meeting, and when we left there, we knew absolutely as much as we did prior to coming. And, you know, we have all been in the dark. You are no more in the dark than we are, and we serve in the legislature. And the way we get our news is when the governor has a press conference, he tells people, you know, what he's going to do and what he isn't going to do, and that's when we learn about it. Most of the time, those of us who are outside the loop. And, you know, to tell you that we're knowledgeable is not true. We have no more idea about what's going on than you do. Now, yesterday, when he met with us, he told us that an agreement had been reached. I have not seen any new press conferences where they said one had been reached. I did not read today's town talk because I was up at 5 o'clock. I was in Baton Rouge at 8 this morning and got back and then had to be at a police jury meeting in Red River Parish in Cascading at 3, and I'm here now. I'm not going to be able to stay much longer because I can hardly hold my eyes open. You know, I know that I look like I'm 39, but I'm really 65. So, you know, I'm mistaken all the time for, you know, famous celebrities because of my youthful look. But anyway, I thank you all for having me here. It's a privilege and honor to be here. I know no more. Robert Johnson pretty much gave the synopsis of what's going on, what we know, and to repeat that would be repetitious to you because you've heard it already. You heard it from the man who was a former Secretary of the Department of Health and Hospitals. But darkness is over this state. We know nothing no more than you do, and I can assure you of that.
Representative Robert Johnson of Marksville said those saying that the deal involving the State, England Airport, Christus Cabrini, and Rapides General is a done deal are engaged in wishful thinking, particularly if that agreement does not include an agreement on money.
We don't know a whole lot about this deal. We do know from what we were told in a restaurant at Rufino's, Rapides and Cabrini came in to tell us very limited information. The information they did tell us was that they have joined together to form a partnership, a nonprofit corporation, which is going to privatize the inpatients and outpatients at the charity hospital. They're going to rent the old charity hospital site, was the original plan, for a limited amount of time until the England Airport facility could be renovated to accommodate the entire facility. And that is the deal. They needed a tremendous amount of money. I want to say it was $25 million. $22 million is what they were asking to do this deal, and that was just to do the deal. No one has addressed what's going to be the cost of the care. The problem is once we do this deal, and it costs us more than we anticipated, they're going to knock on the door of the legislature and say, give us some more money. And when the legislature says, we don't have any to give you, they're going to say, fine, take your patients. And we're going to be in a terrible situation. I'm going to tell you like it is. This is a terrible situation. We are blessed, though, that our deal hasn't been signed. So the good news is we have a chance. And the bad news is no one knows about the deal to be able to get enough information to the public. The press can't write anything except they're not telling anyone the deal. And so the public is very, not even, I can't say they're misinformed, they're not informed at all.
Nor are we.
And nor are we. So it makes it a very difficult situation. I'm sure it's by design, but it makes it a difficult situation to get a public riled up. And I can tell you on both sides of the community, people are riled up. Whether you're rich or poor, everyone should be mad about this deal. Whether you're getting your care at charity or whether you're getting your care at a private hospital, as a taxpayer, this should infuriate you. Because for the dollars that you pay in taxes, you've got a governor who's going to take those dollars and pay more for patient care than we're currently paying now. And I will guarantee you that care may not be as good, because the care at Charity Hospital was excellent. It beat the privates every time.
Beyond the lack of information on what will result from any deal that might be struck, there's widespread doubt about any plans that moves Huey P. Long services out of Pineville and across the Red River into Alexandria. There are also doubts about whether Christus Cabrini and Rapides General can handle the patient load now handled by Huey P. Long.
You've got a retired community of older people. They don't know what the state is planning about putting a charity hospital right in the middle of them. And they don't know that you're going to have to take care of prisoners and the mentally ill. And when all of a sudden these older, retired, conservative folks are found out that they're now in the midst of something that they never anticipated, I think there's going to be some problems. The other problem is going to be getting people there. Most of the people that use Huey P probably on the north side of the river. So what do you do when you get them to Alexandria? If you can get them to Alexandria across the river, my son happens to be mayor. I told him the other day, I said, what are y'all going to do? You're going to buy a bunch of new buses? You better talk to the city council, get some money, because those people are going to demand a way to get to the England Airport.
When you put this hospital out of benefit in Pineville, I think it'll affect the whole community because of the need. We just have a need for care. It's not because people want to be, what would you call it, just a deadbeat on the community. I wasn't a deadbeat. I worked for 30 years. My husband did too. We had a hospitalization, but like I said, we need this hospital in this community because there are people just like I did. They had jobs, maybe their jobs had insurance. And, you know, we go to the hospital now. I don't have a problem with the hospitals, but this is what I do have a problem with. You have to pay co-pays, and sometimes you have insurance, but you don't have the money for co-pay, and that leaves you struggling, wondering if you should go to the hospital because of the co-pays, or just go on and suffer, or try to get over-the-counter, medication, because when you got Medicare, they do have a copay. So you're gonna be billed there. Where Charity Hospital, we had a copay too, but they would waiver it. I don't know how they did it, but if you couldn't pay it, you still could present your insurance, and what was over, you didn't have to pay.
We're going to have people pass up. Huey Long has been here for years to try to get across the river to a facility that is not going to be able to provide the services that we need. We hear situations right now in Alexandria of people having to go to the emergency room and wait hours and hours and hours before they can be seen, or they have to be admitted before they can even get into a room or a bed. And we still have Huey Long, so it's hard to believe that we will be equipped to handle the number of people that our area see.
Nancy Granquist Fields also raised the emergency room wait times issue, but from the perspective of a family member of a disabled veteran.
I believe if Huey P. Long closes, it's going to be a great disservice to our veterans. I'm speaking as the spouse of a disabled veteran who, before he was stabilized out at the VA, we had to make many trips to emergency rooms at Rapides and Cabrini, and each trip was at least 6 to 8 hours. And as my understanding is that when Huey P. closes, that everyone will be referred to the emergency room at Rapides and Cabrini, and that's just going to extend that. I mean, it's going to be overburden the system to the point that our veterans aren't going to be, I mean, there's still plenty of veterans that go to the emergency room at those hospitals, and that's can't be. They can't. No one should have to wait 6 to 8 hours. And if they're going to overburden the system, you're looking, 12-hour wait. So.
Angelina Isles has concerns about access to a facility at England Airport, as well as the impact of the reduction of available hospital bed space in times of public emergencies like hurricanes.
I have several concerns. The first one is basically the growth of Pineville. Pineville is growing really large, and with the population being so large, I have a concern. Why would you have so many people in one concentrated area and no hospital? Pineville is basically like a little island, the way I see it. On each side of the river, on each side you have bridges. In order to go to Marsville, you have to cross the bridge, and you have to also cross the bridge if you are going to Alexandria. I don't think that's a smart move to get a hospital closed in an area where you have so many people concentrated in one area. People north of the river have to come through Pineville to get to the hospital. Another concern is we have hurricane season. We have inclement weather that sometimes causes us to not be able to cross the river. And that's another big concern. We have hurricane season. During hurricane season, and I have worked many hurricanes because I've always been a shelter manager. And I've seen people come in from down South Louisiana. And with them coming in from South Louisiana, they were routed to Pineville. And we use Charity Hospital because I myself as a manager have on many occasions had to send carloads of people to Huey P. Long Hospital. But without that hospital and that availability, that's a concern because I've worked it. I know exactly what can happen. I know what have happened. Because I've seen firsthand that there's a big need. And I can't understand why anybody would make such a decision when you're putting people in harm's way in more ways than one.
Helen Moore, a retired Huey P. Long dietitian, has concerns about dislocations resulting from the moving of Huey P. Long services across the Red River and into England Airport.
This is a people problem. It's not only a people problem for the sick, the poor, the children. It's for all of us. We need a hospital on this side of the river besides the VA because we can't go to the VA. And you can say, well, it's not very often that the bridge goes up and you have to wait. Well, if you're in the ambulance bleeding and the bridge is up for 20 minutes and the ambulance can't turn around, that's 100%. We need, and you couldn't get to Marksville quick enough, or Winfield, or Gina, even though those are good hospitals and they're losing money. We have an excellent hospital on this side of the river. And I think our officials and our governor needs to look at this very carefully. They're moving people around like pawns on a board. It's very, very distressing and disheartening. So because of these reasons, and my working there and know the quality of care and who we took care of, and it wasn't always just the poor. It was people that got hurt on this side of the river and went there as an emergency, and they were well taken care of. It's a great training ground for doctors. We trained a lot of doctors there. So for these reasons, just this, I would urge our officials and our governor to rethink this. Governor, what if you were in that ambulance having a heart attack or bleeding to death and the bridge was up and you couldn't get over to Alexandria for the other good hospitals? Think about that. And then taking money, $15 million, and improving it out there at England Airport. Why do that when it's so hard to get there? It's easier to get to Huey P. Long. This makes no logical sense, so I would beg you to consider these factors.
Gloria Hearn of Pineville offered this perspective.
And we need to remember who we are. We are a group of people that founded Pineville in particular, and Alexandria, a group of people, hard workers that came in here and built this community, founded on the Judeo-Christian values. And that includes caring for those who are less fortunate than we are. And I would ask our governor, every elected official, to think carefully before making decisions hastily about moving Huey P. Long out to England Airport, because there may be some, I suspect that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for some people to benefit financially. And I'm not against beneficial, but I think we need to be careful about how we do some of those things. I want to say publicly how much I appreciate Senator Joe McPherson's compassion for people, and for the smart way that he has in the past made some recommendations, and I think maybe even legislation about Huey P. Long that may require some judicial decisions to be made as to whether or not this facility can be taken from Pineville to serve the people in Pineville out to an area where there's a retirement community. That would make it difficult to get over there, but it would also be an infringement on a lot of the activities that are already going on over there, that retirement community and so forth. So I would beg our governor to step back and think carefully about what would happen, and think about the values of our people. I beg our legislators, think carefully before many of you who have become very financially able, I beg you to think more carefully before making a decision or cut deals that would line the pockets of some of our people out in the business world who are using the health care needs of our people as a way to get financially rich.
Angelina Isles wants to clear up one bit of disinformation regarding Governor Jindal's plans for Huey P. Long. Whatever services are moved out to England Airport under the name Huey P. Long, there will not be a hospital there.
There will not be a hospital, and I think some people are under the belief that there is, but there will not be a third hospital in Alexandria. And I repeat that, there will not be a third hospital. There will only be a shell. There will be an emergency room, and there will be 10 beds, and the 10 beds will be dedicated to people that have mental problems. If there's an emergency, well, they will be hospitalized there with 10 beds. Across the street, the school, which have never been mentioned, the school across the street will be opened as a clinic type of situation. But then from the emergency room to the clinic, and that's all there will be. There will be no beds available. If someone goes to the emergency room and they need to be hospitalized, you're going to have to pray that there is availability at the two other hospitals, which is Cabrini and Rapides. But there will not be, and I repeat, there will not be a hospital, a third hospital in Alexandria.
Not only will there not be a third hospital in Alexandria, Huey P. Long will no longer be part of the LSU Health Sciences Center in Shreveport. That hospital and E.A. Conway were recently signed away to the Biomedical Research Foundation of Northwest Louisiana. Ripping Huey P. Long out of that network could have serious repercussions for those central Louisiana residents whose outpatient clinical services are either in Shreveport or Monroe.
We think of ourselves as an urban community, but we have, in the outlying areas, we have a tremendous population in central Louisiana. People who are being served, people coming from distances around Pineville, and people needing services. So we are concerned about that, about the availability of medical and mental health services for those among whom we live. And all of this is part of the responsibility of ourselves as a state and a community. So this represents the kind of concern that we have. How will these people be cared for? How will it be available to the people in the rural areas who need the help, who need the care? The rural community is so extremely big and so extremely important for us to remember. We hope that there will be reconsideration of some of the things that have been talked about. At this point, it is extremely unclear as to what is going to be happening. That in itself is creating a good deal of stress. And I must put in a word for the marvelous people, the marvelous dedicated people on all levels who are the staffs, the people who deliver the services at Huey P. Long, at Central, at Pinecrest. These are people on a daily basis for many, many years who have provided extremely excellent care.
Angelina Isles has had to have her brother admitted to each of the two Alexandria hospitals that have been asked to run the stripped-down Huey P. Long operation at England Air Park. Based on her experience, she does not believe that these hospitals are up to the challenge of providing quality care to an indigent population.
They cannot, and they're not prepared, because I've talked to several of the employees there, and the complaints are that they're not, and they can't understand how they're going to actually do this. Anthony was in the hospital for 2 weeks. First of all, he was in the hospital for 3 days at Rapides. Then he was transferred to Cabrini, to Debris. Once he was there for 14 days, he was sent home, and he was really not completely cured of the pneumonia. But we had to come home. 24 hours later, we were back in the emergency room. We've had to go to Cabrini at that particular time. While we were in Cabrini Hospital, there were people lined up in the emergency room waiting to see the doctor. Anthony was then admitted after about 12 hours of being in the emergency room waiting, and he's bedbound. He had a severe stroke. After waiting all these hours, we finally were admitted into the hospital and was seen by the M-Care doctors there. While we were there, he was admitted, and he did finally get a bed. We were there for approximately 5 days. And in 5 days, the complaint was, we are overwhelmed, and that was by the nurses, the techs, everyone talking about how overwhelmed they were with people being afraid and not knowing exactly what's going to happen because the talk of the closure of Huey P. Long Hospital.
The governor and his cronies are telling us that it's no use to fight this, that the end of Huey P. Long Hospital, we have known it for more than 70 years, is a done deal. Talk is cheap. If they have a deal, produce it. A deal without an agreement on money is a dance, not a deal. Yes, we have an uphill fight, but it's important that we recognize how much we've accomplished in a few short months. When the governor presented his executive budget to the legislature, there was no funding for Huey P. Long Hospital. We all stood together and said we would not accept that, and the governor has been forced to trot out a retool variation of his 2011 plan to move Huey P. across the river to England Park. Do not be fooled. The governor is not going to open a new hospital at England Airport. It's a clinic with an emergency room. We will not rest, we will not let up, we will not go away until we have secured Huey P. Long's future as a hospital and until the governor has come to his senses on Medicaid expansion. For some of our brothers and sisters, these are absolutely life or death issues. We're inviting you to join Pineville Concerned Citizens every Monday in August at 6 o'clock in the evening for a vigil of prayers and praise. In the meantime, here are 3 steps you can take today that can help change the course of health care in Louisiana. First, call your representative and senator today and tell them that you want Louisiana to participate in Medicaid expansion and that you want Huey P. Long Hospital to remain a hospital and to be located in Pineville. Second, call the administrator of your hospital and ask him or her how they plan to survive without the funding for Medicaid expansion. Third, tell your friends and neighbors about this program and the work of Pineville Concerned Citizens to save Central Louisiana health care.
He was discharged at exactly 11 o'clock. I got to the hospital to get him home. We had to wait. We was told to wait until 2:30. 2:30 I waited. No one discharged him. 5:30, still no discharge. Finally, I got a call maybe 30 minutes after that telling me that Anthony would be on route home. I waited. I got all his personal belongings and I waited at home for him. It was almost 9 o'clock. Finally, I got a call and I was told that he was on his way home. When Anthony finally got home, he got home with just a diaper on his bottom and wrapped up in the cover that covers the patients when they are transported from a Cascading ambulance. And when I uncovered him and asked, well, why is he not clothed? This man came home with no dignity and no respect. I did call the hospital and I spoke to several people. And I asked why. Why did you send my brother home with no dignity and respect? Without a shirt, without a gown, without a towel, or without anything on him. I was told, well, we're so busy, we're so overwhelmed with people, we're discharging them. And the fastest we discharge them, we have more people coming in. And the nurse said to me personally, I did not have time to get a gown and to put on him because we needed the bed, so we had to get him out. And that's how they sent him home. And if this is happening now, I hate to see what's going to happen later on. That troubles me. It troubles me a whole lot because I'm an advocate for my brother, but who's going to advocate for other people that cannot advocate for themselves? This is something that everybody, the public needs to be aware of. The public needs to make noise about it. They need to call the legislators. They need to be concerned because the information that needs to be out is not out there.
And I thank Angelina for coming down and speaking on behalf of that bill, to say that it was something that we need, to tell the story about her family, and to tell the story about what they're going through and what they're facing. It's not just Angelina that's facing those type of conditions. There are many, many citizens here in the state of Louisiana who are going through. Until we can stand up, until we can speak up, until we can let the governor know that it's no more your day every day, I think this year, I applaud the legislators this year. Because we didn't just sit back and allow him to do whatever he wanted to do, the way he wanted to do it. We took a stand. And I thank my colleague here who sit at the table with me as we fought, and we fought, and we fought for 5 hours and a half. And we fought, and we fought. But you know, it's nothing like a good fight. It's nothing like a good fight that's a real fight. That's a fight that needs to be fought. And that's a fight that you know that you are fighting for the people. And you know that it's the right thing to do. I stand here today and say I'm proud to stand there and sit there for 5.5 hours. Because I knew that it was all a worthwhile effort. It was an effort that we were thinking about those things that was going to affect the people of the state of Louisiana. And if they ask me to do it again tomorrow, I will go right back. I'll go right back. And I will say I'm back again. And I'll be back again. And I'll be back again. Because when we give up and we quit, we already defeated.
One thing I said to them was that, hey, this is party politics, and Washington fought the fight of party politics when they passed the Affordable Health Care Act. That's off the table. The party fight is over. The only question we must ask ourselves now, not whether it's expedient as a Democrat, whether it's expedient as a Republican, or whether it's expedient as an independent, what we must ask ourselves is if it's good for Louisiana. And so somebody said, I'm not here to fight a party fight. That was fought in Washington. And I said, when you see a savings of 300 and some million, when you see 400 and some insured, when you see a viable workforce where people are actually being treated and back at work because they're healthy, I have to say that that is good for this state. And so there were no other questions. Like we asked all my colleagues that were against it. I said, are we now fighting based on our party? Are we fighting based on who we represent? Because this is a no-brainer. The one thing I told them at the end of the day was this: regardless if we accept it or not, our share of the federal cost to it will be the same.